Audience signals are one of the most commonly misunderstood aspects of Performance Max campaigns. If you spend a lot of time and effort meticulously optimizing your audience signals to control who sees your ads, I have some bad news for you. That's not how audience signals work, and you might be wasting your time.
I'd be stupid not to do it, right?
So in this video, I'm going to explain exactly what Performance Max audience signals actually do, what truly controls your Performance Max targeting, and share a few tips for getting the most out of your audience signals. And the tips you will learn here aren't just theory, they're backed by real-life case studies and tests we've done at ROImonks, the performance marketing agency where I work. So without further ado, let's get to it. First, let's clear up the number one misconception, and that is that Performance Max audience signals work in a similar way to audience targeting in other campaign types or even on other ad platforms. In reality, audience signals are not precise targeting rules. In fact, Google has officially confirmed that they're just signals and that Performance Max will go beyond your signals. They are there to help guide your campaign in the right direction initially, but your Performance Max campaign will also test audiences outside of your signals and will optimize based on the incoming conversion data. The same logic applies to Performance Max search themes, which is another way to provide signals to Performance Max campaigns. Search themes are different from the keywords you have in your search campaigns. Specifically, keywords let you target specific search queries, whereas search themes let you reach people who use certain search topics. But it doesn't mean that your Performance Max campaign will target just these search topics. Search themes are just signals. They're there to help you guide Google towards your ideal customer, but Google will be beyond your search themes as well. So a logical question you might be asking is, what is actually controlling my Performance Max campaign targeting, apart from the initial signals that you provide with the audience signals and search themes? There are several factors. First, and by far the most important, is your incoming conversion data. The signals Google receives from your conversions are the number one factor driving your campaign targeting. Number two is your demographics targeting. When you define your audience signals, you are also able to define your demographics, but even here, it's not guaranteed that your campaign will strictly reach only your defined demographics. You can reach people who are likely to be in the demographic groups that you choose, but it's not guaranteed. Factors 3 and 4 are your creative assets and your landing pages. It's important to make sure that both your creative assets, such as your headlines, descriptions, and so on, as well as your landing pages, are highly relevant to your target audience. Make sure to include your top value, most relevant search terms in both. For your landing page, also make sure your metadata is well written, along with your landing page headlines, body text, and images. Essentially, Performance Max will use information and signals from your creative assets and landing pages as signals for targeting as well. The next factor, which is specifically applicable to e-commerce businesses, is your feed. I've made a separate video about how to optimize your feed for best performance and reach in Google Ads. Your feed attributes, especially your product title, will also drive your product targeting and, as a result, your Performance Max targeting. The next factor is your campaign level and account level negative keywords. When Performance Max was first launched, we didn't have the ability to add negative keywords to it, and early on, we didn't even have the search term data for Performance Max campaigns, but now we do. That means that we can see, at least to a reasonable approximation, what search terms our Performance Max campaigns are appearing for, and if you're seeing something completely irrelevant, you can add those searches as negative keywords at either the campaign or account level, and in this way, you're able to control your campaign targeting more precisely. Next are your account level content suitability settings, specifically the ability to exclude certain placements or content themes. While this isn't the most precise way to control your Performance Max, it is another lever you can use when needed. And finally, your campaign settings will of course influence its targeting as well, and this includes your bidding strategy, your bidding target, and any bid caps you might have, plus your customer acquisition and customer retention bidding adjustments, as well as your devices, brand exclusions, demographic exclusions, your data exclusions, and so on. So if there are so many different factors that control Performance Max targeting, another logical question you might have here is, should I even use audience signals and search themes in my Performance Max campaign at all? The answer is yes, especially in the beginning when you're first launching a campaign or working with limited data. Audience signals become more important because, as we mentioned, incoming conversion data is the #1 factor driving your campaign targeting. And when a campaign lacks that data and hasn't yet learned what types of audiences to target, you need to be more proactive in guiding your campaign towards the right audience. But don't rely on audience signals as a method for optimizing your Performance Max targeting in the long run. Treat them as a tool for early stage guidance or for situations where you're working with limited data. Now, in order to make the most out of your Performance Max audience signals and avoid the most common mistakes I see people make, here are a few agency-tested tips. First, your first-party data is the best signal you can possibly provide to your Performance Max campaign, and the further down the funnel it is, the better. For example, a customer list is a stronger signal than leads or add to carts, so use a relevant list when possible, but keep in mind that your customer list needs to be large enough. The minimum requirement used to be at least 1,000 matchable users for the list to become eligible to use, but Google recently lowered it to just 100, which is good news. However, Google's match rate isn't 100%. So in reality, you will probably need at least a couple hundred users in your list for it to become usable as a signal. But the more data points about your customers you give Google, the better your match rate will be. And the larger your list and the more relevant it is, the better. If you advertise for a young company and you don't have a customer list large enough yet, you can add your GA4 audiences as well, like your website visitors or initiate checkouts, for example. Just make sure that your Google Ads and your GA4 accounts are linked, and you will be able to select them directly in your audience signals. My second tip is that in-market audiences have higher intent than affinity audiences. So if you have to choose between the two, I would suggest prioritizing in-market audiences as a signal. Tip number 3, take advantage of audience insights to see which audiences would be best to add or remove as signals. And if you don't have access to audience insights, just use common sense and add audiences and detailed demographics that logically make sense for your business. Just keep in mind that these are just signals and Google will go beyond them anyway, so don't overthink it. Tip number 4, take advantage of custom segments or custom interests to reach people who browse websites or apps similar to your direct competitors. The fourth tip is to refresh your customer match list quarterly or set up an automatic customer list. And the final tip is to adapt your creative assets and landing page to your audience signals for each asset group. Don't just duplicate an asset group and run the same headlines and descriptions while only changing the audience signals. If you don't have a separate creative or feed approach for an asset group, then consolidate all your audience signals under the same asset group. There is no reason to segment into more asset groups unless you actually have different assets to show, as the name asset group implies. If you need more help with your Google Ads campaigns, your Google Ads strategy, or your digital marketing more broadly, check out ROImonks. I will leave their links in the description. You might even catch me there. If you want a one-on-one consultation with me personally, check out my pen site link. And if my work helped you and you just want to buy me a coffee, that link is down there as well. Here are a couple more videos I think you will find valuable. Thank you so much for watching up to this point, and I'll see you in the next one.